Welcome to the Titan Tar channel. Today we have a topic to discuss about Russia dominating the front while Ukraine suffers devastating blows. Don't miss the chance to join us and share your opinions with us. Become a member of our channel and evolve your rank. News continues to arrive from the Donetsk front, where the Russian army maintains a constant offensive, pushing Ukrainian forces back and daily capturing new localities and territories in Donbass. The Russian Defense Ministry announced that the troops of the Center Group drove Ukrainian forces out of the village of Karlovka, located on the route to Pokrovsk. This strategic achievement significantly complicates the logistics of the Ukrainian Armed Forces in the Donetsk direction. Control over Karlovka not only disrupts Ukrainian supply lines, but also allows Russian forces to position their artillery at a safe distance from the capital of the Donetsk People's Republic, DPR. This will reduce the intensity of Ukrainian shelling both on the city and in the surrounding areas, giving Russian troops a crucial advantage on this front. At the same time, in the south of Donetsk, Vostok attack aircraft took control of another settlement west of Ugledar. Russian forces are now flanking the small but heavily fortified town, restricting the movement of Ukrainian troops, who are forced to use alternative routes through forest belts due to the destruction of the main supply roads. After intensive preparation with artillery shelling and airstrikes, the 155th Marine Brigade of the Pacific Fleet launched a direct assault on Ugledar. At the same time, Russian troops are consolidating their new positions along the Pokrovsky front, having gained hundreds of square kilometers over the past month, expanding their presence and putting pressure on Ukrainian defenses in several areas. At the Eastern Economic Forum, Russian President Vladimir Putin raised the possibility of a peaceful solution to the conflict in Ukraine. According to him, countries such as China, Brazil, and India could act as mediators. Putin stressed that the leaders of these nations have shown a willingness to help resolve the conflict and that he maintains a constant dialogue with them on this issue. The Kremlin press secretary also mentioned that India, with good relations with Moscow, Kyiv, and Washington, could play an important role in the peace negotiations. Meanwhile, China and Brazil have already proposed a peace summit, and Zelensky suggested to the Indian Prime Minister that a second summit be held in India, reinforcing the search for a diplomatic solution. However, the Ukrainian command has focused its efforts on the Kursk region, diverting resources and effectively abandoning units fighting in Donetsk. The Russians continue to advance on Pokrovsk and Myrnograd, and Russian forces in southern Donetsk are flanking Ugledar, which could result in a siege of the city. Russian tactics of simultaneous offensives on several fronts are beginning to bear fruit. Ukrainian forces, focused on repelling attacks on Chasiv Yar and areas such as Toretsk and Pokrovsk, have weakened their defenses on the southern flank of Artemovsk, allowing Russian troops to break through the defense lines and push the Ukrainians back beyond the Seversky Canal into Donetsk Donbass. This Russian advance, which extends more than 3 kilometers in depth, represents a significant gain, especially considering the pace of current military operations. This progress not only puts further pressure on Ukrainian defenses at Chasiv Yar, but also opens the possibility that Russian forces in the south will advance to the canal line, preparing for further offensives in the region. The upcoming movements of the Russian armed forces indicate that they will attempt to advance towards Konstantinovka, which would put Russian troops in the rear of the Ukrainian group stationed at Chasiv Yar. Such a move would not only open a new flank against Ukrainian forces, but would also facilitate a Russian attack on Toretsk from the north, increasing the pressure on Ukrainian defenses in the region. The recent Russian strategy, which has avoided frontal attacks on fortified areas such as Chasiv Yar and Ugledar, demonstrates an effective use of flanking tactics. Instead of direct confrontation, the Russians opt to encircle and isolate Ukrainian garrisons, cutting off their supply lines and evacuation routes. Under constant Russian artillery fire and airstrikes, Ukrainian forces are unable to hold their positions for long without essential supplies such as ammunition, food, medicine, and the evacuation of the wounded. Since 2014, Kyiv has been transforming settlements near Donetsk into defensive strongholds, with the aim of using them as springboards for possible counterattacks. Towns such as Soledar, Artemovsk, Avdiivka, and Mariinka have been reinforced, often using local industrial infrastructure, including underground mines and bunkers, in the belief that these would be impregnable bastions. However, despite all these fortifications, the the Ukrainian Armed Forces were driven out of these locations by Russian troops. The example of the liberation of Mariinka illustrates this reality. The city, heavily defended with underground structures, was used by the Ukrainians as a supply depot, a defensive point, and a transport route. However, even this was not enough. In late December last year, Russian forces captured Mariinka, from where the Ukrainian military shelled Donetsk for almost a decade. Despite the structural advantage, the Ukrainian defenses fell before the persistence and courage of the Russian troops. According to a Russian Special Forces commander, the soldiers' heroism was decisive. Even facing an enemy flanking them from both the right and left, Russian troops advanced and took the city, which was no longer home to civilians, which made it easier for heavy artillery and high-explosive bombs dropped by Russian aviation to be used. Still, the commander stressed that it was the infantry that played the crucial role in the final capture of Mariinka. Today, Ukrainian forces are increasingly retreating west of Donetsk, under constant pressure from the Russian army. The areas further west lack the same fortifications that cities like Mariinka once had. Ugledar, located south of Donetsk, is currently one of the few remaining fortified points. However, the Russians have adopted a bypass tactic, surrounding the city from the flanks and cutting off its supply lines. Meanwhile, Russian artillery and all other weapons continue to bombard Ukrainian positions in Ugledar incessantly, putting increasing pressure on the local defenses. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, like the video, and share it with your friends. Your interactions mean a lot to us and help us grow. See you next time.